Medium's book, Part 2, Chapter 23, is on obsession, which is commonly known as a spirit attachment. Um, it's one of the dangers of spiritism. Of the number of dangers within the practice of spiritism, presents in the front rank must be placed obsession. There's a domination or dominion of spirits over certain persons. It is never done except by inferior spirits who seek to govern. With good spirits who experience no restraint, they only advise and combat the influence of the bad. If they are not listened to, withdraw. The bad, on the contrary, attach themselves to those whom they find exposed. If they gain dominion over anyone, they identify themselves with his own spirit and lead him like a veritable child. So it's more sneaky, the obsession, almost like the person being influenced can't tell that this isn't their own thoughts. We're talking about the dead and guides, just to be again clear that this doesn't necessarily apply to higher spirits. Within the doctrine of spiritism, they probably would apply this to a higher spirit who's dominating on somebody. But that's just within the lens of Kardec. It's been my experience with higher mysterios that they can dominate a person. They can press on a person, but we're not just ridden willy-nilly either, and that's why we're trained mediums and trained priests to manage being ridden or being mounted is what we say. We don't really tend to use the word possession in our more African-based traditions. But they also will withdraw, although I'm sure these higher spirits or loasas to punish a person, or for certain reasons could very much dominate somebody. And I wouldn't still consider them like an inferior spirit, even if you wanted to look at them as not the highest spirit, but definitely not the lowest spirit. If you know what I'm trying to say in the doctrine of spiritism here in the lens that they're using. Obsession presents various characteristics, which is necessary to distinguish, and is a result from the degree that the person's being constrained, or it's like a restriction. Obsession, fascination, and subjugation. It's already been explored in previous chapters how our own emotions, balance, vibration, behavior, spirit can attract a like spirit, and just our own mental intelligence and balance as well. If we're a person that has addictive personality, or if we obsess on something spiritual or become fanatics, for example, that opens you up much more to obsession because you are behaving in an obsessive manner as well. And so that's also why it's almost like a hypnotic thing that spirits can also do to you. So if your own awareness, and that we don't like just keep being fascinated by something, we break that sort of obsession ourself with something. Simple obsession is when a bad spirit imposes himself on a medium, meddles in the communications, prevent them from communication with other spirit, and substitutes themselves for another spirit. Say a good spirit you prayed to come, and then this simple obsession from a malicious spirit comes instead. It's not obsession to be deceived by a lying spirit. The best medium is exposed to that, especially in the beginning when they lack experience, the same as us. With the most honest person may be duped by rascals. One cannot be deceived without being obsessed. Obsessed is in the hold or the tenacity of the spirit that you cannot get rid of on you. So just because you have a communication with a bad spirit doesn't mean that it's obsessing on you. But it can definitely be a step towards that, or a stage, or a necessary precursor, something that must come before. Obsession is a bad spirit. In simple obsession, a medium knows that it's a lying spirit or negative. The spirit doesn't hide themselves, doesn't disguise themselves for their intentions. The medium sees that this is an imposture, and the medium is on guard and not deceived. This kind of obsession is simply disagreeable and has no other inconvenience than a simple obstacle to the communication that might be desired with serious spirits or those who we love. Physical obsession is ranked in this class, who consist of noisy or obstinate manifestations of certain spirits who rap and make other noises. Fascination. Fascination has much more serious consequences. It's an illusion upon the medium's thought. So alters our thought and in some measure paralyzes our judgment in regard to communications, almost like a poison or a drug. Clouds our judgment. The medium does not believe themselves to be deceived. The medium has confidence in this bad spirit, and that prevents us from seeing treachery or understanding the absurdity of the spirit communication. Even when other people can see the truth, the illusion may go as far as to see the best and the most ridiculous language, ignorant, those without judgment, or even those of the most learned are not exempt. So it's the effect of a foreign cause, not relative to our intelligence. Because of illusion, it's more serious because the medium is more blinded, which can lead to compromising and being in danger. One can understand the difference between simple obsession and fascination is that the spirits who produce these two effects must differ in character. In the first, the simple fascination, the spirit's only being troublesome, and we are impatient to get rid of it. In the second, it's more subtle and hypocritical, masks himself, has a semblance of virtue, hides behind charity and humility, but shows sign that they are lower. The spirit dreads other people who can see themselves clear, see what's clearly going on, and so they inspire the person who's being fascinated to withdraw from other people who could help free the person or get rid of the bad spirit. The bad spirit withdraws the person being affected from people that could help them. And that's also why if you're being avoidant of cleansing yourself, or say going to misas and stuff like that, there could be a reason why that again, these spirits want you to avoid being caught, avoid contradiction, and so that the medium is always sure that they are correct. Subjugation. This paralyzes the will and makes you act in spite of what you know is your own thoughts or your own will. So basically, you know you shouldn't be doing something, but you're so dominated that you do it anyway, and it's almost like you watch yourself do it. Like you're kind of become like almost like a zombie. Subjugation can be moral or corporeal, so it could either be make you do something that you're totally against, or it could actually be or it could be more like actual like physical domination. So either to get you to agree morally, or it's like more of a struggle, or actually physically make you go do it. In the first case, you ultimately accept it as sensible, like a kind of fascination. In the second case, the spirit actually acts on your physical body and makes your body move and do things involuntarily, such as in the writing medium. A man who, under, this is an example, under obsession of this nature, would force him to kneel to a young girl he had never seen before and ask her in marriage. At other times, he fell on his back and felt a huge pressure to force him, despite him opposing internally, to kneel and kiss the ground in public and crowded places. So people thought he was crazy, but we were convinced he was not so, because he was perfectly conscious of the ridicule of everybody around him, suffered horribly from it, and he did not want to do these actions. And he was like looking for help from this oppression. Formally, the name of possession was given to this physical dominion by evil spirits, which spiritists call subjugation. They do not adopt the term possession because it implies, first of all, it's a more Catholic Church term, but it implies that beings are perpetually devoted to evil, like did something evil to invite the evil in, which Spiritism kind of agrees, even though it's kind of supposed to be like a no blamer. But it's saying because we know internally we would never do these things, but physically the spirit's making us do it, that it's not a character flaw in that case. Causes of obsession. One of the most frequent and one of the greatest dangers of mediumship. So we cannot take too much pains to combat this, I guess discuss this. It's an absolute obstacle to good and true communication, which is basically the object of Spiritism. If a mostly suspicious spirit gives you out maybe possibly something good, you should still doubt it or doubt the spirit, because obsession is known by the following characteristics. How you can discern or look at a spirit which might be obsessive is stage 1, or first, persistence of a spirit in communicating by writing, hearing, etc., and opposing what other spirits may do. So basically, your spirits should have a general consensus among them, probably, if they're all working for your good. So if you have this one spirit coming along that disagrees with a bunch of other spirits and is like forcing all this communication with you, it's probably an obsessive spirit. A lot of higher spirits, or spirits who have moved on or elevated, or certain spirits may only be given permission to come visit us. This is what I'm adding now. Cannot only is given permission to, or only communicates with us like once in a while, unless it's like your actual guides or ancestors. We're talking more like an outside spirit now. Isn't going to be in your face all the time, talking to you every single day, stuff like that. That's going to be a more obsessive spirit. Or if a spirit, or if someone just passed over, they're more prone to be obsessing. And if they haven't left this plane, that's one reason we don't contact them for a year. But if someone just passed over and they're communicating with you all the time, the chances are they could be an obsessive spirit. And that's also why we don't want to promote that. Second, illusion impacts the intelligence of the medium. So it's kind of going more into fascination. Third, belief in infallibility of spirits under large, respected, name-dropping, venerated names, say false or absurd things. 4, all confidence in the medium, as that this medium's amazing, blah, blah, blah. 5th, withdrawing from anybody who gives him useful advice. 6, rejecting all criticism. 7th, incessant, inopportune desire to write, like even when it's like the most inconvenient time to do so, and they won't back off. If you tell them, okay, later we're going to schedule this date, this is the time I can sit down and write with you, but they're still like moving your hand all over the walls with a pen or something, that's not good. 8, any physical restraint, whatever, against the will and being forced to act in spite of your own self. 9, persistent noises and disturbances around yourself of which you're the cause or object of. In face of this danger obsession, it's asked, is it not a pity or curse to be a medium? Is it not the ability that induces these obsessions? And it is not the proof of we shouldn't be doing spirit communications. Our answer is easy to this. Neither mediums nor spiritists create the spirits, but the spirits have been the cause of their being, spiritists and mediums, because spirits are only the souls of men. So there have been spirits as long as there has been men, and consequently, in all time, have exercised their good or bad influence on humans. So the medium's faculty is only a means of them to manifest themselves. If there's no mediums around, spirits can still do this in 1,000 other ways. So it is an error to believe that spirits are only exercise their influence by using a medium of written or verbal communication. Their influence is incessant, and those who do not concern themselves about spirits or who do not believe in them are exposed to it as much as others, or even more, because they have no counter ways to counter these spirits, basically. Mediumship is for the spirit to make themselves known. Um, and there's tons of bad spirits who don't want to make themselves known, but they still put the influence on a person. If he's bad, he always betrays himself, however hypocritical he may be in time. And so it must be said that a mediumship allows one to see their enemy face to face, to expose these bad spirits, to fight them with their own weapons. Without this faculty, we act in the dark, and under the cover of invisibility, spirits can and do much harm. Oftentimes, some of our misfortune can be alleviated if we have the means of being enlightened. Other than saying that we give dominion to bad spirits, when spiritism is widely spread, it will actually result in the destruction of these dominations and giving everybody the ability or means to be on our guard against bad suggestions. And then the spirits will have, or the people that have acted on these will have nobody to blame but themselves and not the spirits. Anyone who has had bad spirit communications, written or verbal, or under an evil influence, this influence is exercised on us whether we write or don't write, whether we're medium or not, whether we believe or disbelieve. That writing only gives us an ability to know the true nature of spirits. So the danger is not so much in spiritism itself. On the contrary, it can be a controlling influence. But we just can't be haughty and believe that we can't be deluded by spirits or in our communications. The motives of this obsession vary according to the nature of the spirit, just like humans have our motivations for doing things. Sometimes it's revenge, because we caused this in our life or in another life. Other times they just want to be evil. They just want to suffer and torment people. We must contract them by being patient, and make themselves weary of us. So the spirit becomes, if we become irritated, then the spirit got what they wanted, basically to get a rise out of us. Some spirits act from hatred and jealousy of good, and that's why they go irritate the best people. One of them sticks like a leech to another family member or an acquaintance or somebody in our relationships, and so that they can't deceive us, but they'll attack us by attacking people around us. When asked why a negative spirit attacks good people instead of evil people, he answered, because he's not jealous of bad people. Others are guided by cowardice or weakness. So some spirits are dominated by other spirits as well. I'll have to add that. One bad spirit who subjugated a young man of limited intellect was asked of his motives, and he answered, I have a great need to torment someone like this because a sensible person would repulse me, so I attach myself to an idiot who has no means of opposing me. There are some obsessive spirits without malice who have even done some good, but they have false knowledge, their own ideas, their own systems of science, economy, morality, religion, philosophy. They're dominating in their opinion to prevail. And so they seek mediums that will believe everything that they say, like so that they get like basically like they're pompous to be right, these spirits. Like, oh yes, you are great. Yes, all your ideas are great. Morality is the least of their care. Um, they don't care who they hurt. They're careful not to give bad advice because they know they will be rejected, but they'll use it as a tool. Spirits who have a system to advance are generally writers, and this is why they're looking to do automatic writing more in the system, and what they're saying that superior spirits look for that. Sometimes it's true that some mediums can only speak with like one like main spirit. This is not always an obsession, because we discussed previous about flexible and inflexible mediums. It's just that some mediums are more flexible to for several different things. But I think it's definitely probably a red flag. So there shouldn't be like illogical thoughts, jibber jabber, means of combating it. That depends on the character of the obsession. The danger doesn't really affect us if we're convinced or evident mediums or positive mediums. They also call that, if we can see that the spirit's being bad, then it's not really going to affect us as much, because we don't think that it's a good spirit in the first place. That's like half the battle. Um, but precisely because we don't like the spirit, then the spirit tries to follow us even more, um, just to bother us. There's two things to do in this case: to prove the spirit is not who they're trying to be and that they cannot deceive us. Secondly, tire out the spirit by showing that we are more patient. If he's thoroughly convinced that he's not gaining any ground and he's going to lose his time and effort and energy, he will end up going away and retiring from us, as we are not a good opportunity when we do not listen to them. But that does not always suffice at first, and it may be a long trial because some of them are very tenacious, and this simple obsession may last months to years, but are little to them in the spirit world because time acts differently. So the medium should make a fervent appeal to our good angels and our good spirits who are sympathetic to us and beg them to assist us. For the obsessing spirit, however bad he is, he should be treated with firmness but kindness, vanquishing him by praying good for him. And if he's really perverse, at first he will mock us, but in persevering to be moral, and around him, it's kind of like a conversion. It might be painful, ungrateful, discouraging, but the merit, and our bonus points come in the difficulty, if well accomplished, is an act of charity and leading a lost soul to a good road. And we do things like elevations, and there's a lot of things we do in Cruzado to help stuck spirits and move spirits on, etc. When you're more trained. But this is a good start, and mode of prayer and all that, and cleansing yourself. You must also break off all communication, such as automatic writing, or even they close down their circles when a bad spirit does not listen to reason, and it may be stop. You may have to stop doing your writing for a time and be very regulated. But even if a writing medium can stop this by abstaining from writing, it's not the same with hearing mediums. When we are pursued with remarks, we can hear them all the time. We can't just close our ears off. There's some who are amused by this and laugh with the spirit instead of just giving them silent treatment and trying to teach them better. Like, don't play their game or match them at their level. Um, take a superior take the high road basically with them. There can only be disgust and not danger for the medium, who will not allow them to self to be abused and cannot be deceived. But it's otherwise with fascination, because the domination over the spirit over the person has no bounds. We need to at least convince this person that they are deceived, but it's not always easy or impossible. Criticism irritates this person and dislikes anybody who does not admire them. Sometimes you can prove that the spirit is not who they say, and then if the spirit is forced to reveal their identity and confess that they're not the say the name or the face that the spirit has taken, the fake masks, then the person may not be fascinated anymore. If you make the person see clearly, you can drive them away, because the medium is blinded at this time. A patient cannot be cured who persists in keeping his disease and even delights in it. Corporal subjugation takes from the obsessed person the energy necessary to rule the bad spirit. For this intervention, a third person is needed, acting either by magnetism or the strength of will. Taking moral ascendancy and superiority to the spirit to exercise it, and their power will be much greater the more authority and superiority that you can command. There's a lot of things that go into commanding, your prayer life, your force behind your passion behind your words, your faith, um, keeping your word in life, not lying. Then your words have greater value in the spiritual realm. We here can give only advice, because there's no exact process or formula or word that will drive away obsessing spirits, he's saying, within the doctrine of Spiritism. Sometimes the obsessed person lacks fluidic force, so the magnetic action of a good magnetizer medium might be very useful, like we do hand passes, etc. And we need our guides to come help remove the spirit, and the person's guides to help remove the spirit. There's often maybe inner problems of the person that can make it difficult to do this sort of exorcism work. Sometimes prayer can only give the person a short respite. And a lot of times there's a part of them that doesn't want to let the spirit go. What is good to do is pray that the spirit protectors do not abandon them. And sometimes people's good spirits leave them because of their actions. But by starting to do better, then our spirits can help return to us and drive away the bad spirit. Because our good spirits are repelled by our bad acts or bad thoughts, and so we must pray for those who suffer, and for them to help them practice being virtuous, basically. A lot of people do a lot of damage with their words and with their tongue. And this is the instruction that the spirit is giving, that moral imperfections give a footing to obsessing spirits. And so the surest means of ridding them is to attract good by well doing. Good spirits have more power than bad, and their will is sufficient to remove them, but they only assist or second them by the efforts that we make to become better. Otherwise, they withdraw and leave the field free to the bad spirits, who come sometimes in cases from instruments of punishment. These annoyances can be just through like being unwise or negligent as well. Saying a planter or farmer wrote to us that for 12 years, all sorts of misfortunes has befallen animals. Sometimes his cow died or wouldn't give milk. Sometimes there were problems with the horses or the sheep and the pigs. He would hire new people, but um, without getting rid of the evil, no remedies would work. He was persuaded that there was evil eye on his animals, and so he had masses. He had exorcisms from the priest. It didn't work, so he went to spiritism. Um, and the answer was that the animals were sick because the stables were infected, and he never got it repaired because it costs money. So he's causing like the spirit of sickness to be there. So it's just negligence. Close this chapter with answers given to the spirit supporting what we've said. Why cannot certain mediums rid themselves of bad spirits with them? How come the good spirits are not powerful enough to remove bad spirits? It's not the power, it's often the medium who's not strong enough to second them. So we have to back them up with our own will, our own energy, and our own power. Our nature adapts itself to certain relationships or relations with spirits, or it's fluid and identifies itself more with one spirit than another, and then this gives us sway to others who wish to take advantage of it. Sometimes, like, I'd also add, like, our energy is like matches up with like different types of spirits, and that doesn't make you like bad. It's just that it could be more dangerous if you just your vibe at a certain vibe is just naturally in a certain ways. um because sometimes there's a great meritorious person of irreproachable morality, and yet they still cannot communicate with good spirits because of bad spirits, and it can be a trial, and we can't tell the innermost thoughts of people and their hearts, because a lot of people just put out the appearance of goodness as well, and exposes our weaknesses, which can help us be more humble. There's nobody on earth who's perfect. um, So we're all like open basically to these bad influences. And we can just make ourselves as much as possible as the good. It doesn't make a medium unworthy, but an obstacle is there. And we should try to remove this. And our prayers don't work enough, then a sick person, even a sick doctor, has to go to another doctor. But the doctor can't do anything if the patient doesn't do what's necessary. Sometimes it's a punishment. There's a lot of reasons for why our spirit communication is blocked, or there's a natural ebb and flow to it too. So there's many reasons I like to add why you're not getting spirit communication if you're already developed, because in the beginning you're going to find what's normal for you in time after you're trained or developed or more developed, and we're always developing. We can give the bad spirit moral instruction, and this is also why we pray. And we try to convince the spirit, to be charitable. We try to convince the spirit to do good things. We try to convince the spirit that there's a road that it can take, that it can change, for example. And there's places that our good spirits can bring spirits, like there's spirit schools or spirit hospitals that these bad or sick spirits can, because they're like kind of like they're ill or spiritually ill, the places that they can go to be educated and be healed and all this. And also, like humans, like we can change ourselves more because that's why we're incarnated to do this. Spirits are a bit more set in their ways of where they're at, if they don't have like a mechanism of like evolution. So um, that's why we have more of an influence in the spiritual contact, because we're also real, like we're physical, so we're manifested, and a spirit in a way is kind of unmanifested, so we make things by our actions and our behavior real in this world by spirit influencing us, for example. So um we actually have the greater authority spiritually than a negative spirit, actually. That's reassuring. Do 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 do. Because that's what the problem is in being a spirit is like you already had your chance on Earth to fix yourself. So there's different mechanisms for it to help itself once you're a spirit is not as easy as us going under a huge trial as a human. Us improving ourselves here is actually more difficult but more effective. That's what we're given this life for. Can corporal subjugation or subjugation over our body, possessions, etc., carry to a certain length to induce insanity? Yes. It's not like ordinary insanity that you can get diagnosed a chemical imbalance in your brain. It's there are many people who are being treated for mental illness that are actually just subjugated, for example, by a spirit. And there's probably those that think that they're subjugated by a spirit who are actually just mentally ill. So, um, when doctors can understand spiritism better, then there'll be a better distinction. And likewise, it's our responsibility as spiritual workers to understand a little bit about human psychology and mental imbalances as well, and how that manifests, how in behavior or in psychology or in thought process, and in communications with just a regular human. Um, and back then, like mental illness treatment was like pretty primitive in Europe. Like they were doing shower baths. Like I think they just shock you, like put you in a stall and pour cold water on you. I don't know. It's probably not waterboarding, but that's what that's what I'm like imagining from shower baths. What may be the thought of those who, seeing danger in spiritism, think to prevent it by avoiding or spirit communications? Um, you can't prevent spontaneous manifestations. Untrained people can't necessarily have dominion or suppress spirits as easily, or if their spirits are super secretive on their influence on us, because that's the most sneaky spirits that will just influence our brains and we don't even know they're there. So you can't be like, la la la, I'm never talking to a ghost. I think talking to ghosts are evil. La la la. It doesn't matter. It's not going to stop anything. So it's like children shutting their eyes and think that no one can see them in the room. It's folly. It's actually more dangerous to run away from mediumship. It's folly to suppress a thing that often gives us great advantages. Just because some people might abuse mediumship, it also is the way to prevent abuses. Basically, to search the thing to the bottom, to shine light on the darkness, basically.